Today we're going to talk about gardening with dogs. We want to explore the possibilities of how to make your pet comfortable in the garden. And we're going to talk about paths, and we're going to talk about yards to run in. This is one of my dogs. This was Flint, and there is a path between those black-eyed Susans. They just happen to grow together. There's a sidewalk in between, but he's learned to walk in between those flowers, which is kind of neat. This is a garden path. You don't have to go out and have a brick walk made just for your dog, but you should come up with some kind of an idea to make a path so that they know where they belong in the garden. This is another path. I had an arbor put up, but I also took flagstone and put through the arbor so that I had a nice path that Flint didn't walk through the flowers. And he was pretty good, but you have to teach them to come through the paths. They don't just automatically know. You put flagstone down for them to walk. This is a bridge that was in my backyard, and they learned to go across the bridge and to the paths on the other side. If you have a yard for them to run in, that's wonderful, because you'll notice all the gardens are, when you look later, you'll see that they're fenced off, so they can run and stay out of the gardens very nicely. You can't miss the running dogs. This is Jackson Trevor. Loved playing and running in the yard without going through the gardens. And this is Jax running and just having a good time. Now, however, the key to gardening with dogs is about to begin. And the first thing you might think about looking for is fencing. They make fencing that's 12 inches, 24 inches, 30 inches. And it's really neat, it's inexpensive, and it's something nice that you can put around your garden. If you have a small garden, there's decorative fence that you could use as well. So when I put mine around the gardens, sometimes once the plants get going about June and July, you don't even pay any attention to the fencing, simply because it blends into the garden. And the dogs know enough that they aren't going to cross it. Now, my dogs are big. Some of you have smaller dogs, so you don't have to have the real tall fence. Mine was 30 inches, and it was enough to keep them out. And here again, we've got plants growing behind the fence, and you can see it, but it blends in enough that you don't pay a lot of attention to the fence. You pay more attention to the plants. Some other ideas. They make X-pens, or we call them X-pens, and they come in panels. So you could buy 10 panels, you could buy 8 panels, depending on the size of your dog. Some of them are tall, 3-4 foot tall, some of them are shorter. So having your dog out in the yard while you're gardening, this is perfect because they're safe. You don't have to worry about turning around and looking at them every 5 minutes to know where they are, because we get so engrossed in planting our plants, we forget we have a dog out in the yard, and the next thing you know, they're gone. So protect them. Put them behind an X-pen. That's one option. Another option is to build a doggy sandbox. Some dogs like to dig, especially in the terrier group. The word terrier means to the earth, and that's what they do. They dig to go after the rodent and kill it. So you can make a sandbox. You can bury their favorite bone, toy, whatever, and let them go find it. And pretty soon they find this. This is a place that's acceptable to dig in and not in the garden. Crates can be a lifesaver as well. Crates come in many different sizes. So even if you had a Great Pyrenees or a St. Bernard, the size of the crate is big enough for them. You could have a very small crate. Crates come in wire, some of them come in fabric, and it gives the dog a chance to watch what's going on in the yard. X-pens give the pet more freedom. The crate would be this one right here. This is a puppy, And he's probably, at this age, he's probably maybe 30 pounds. He's an 80-pound dog at this point. But this is a 36-inch crate by 24 by 27. So, something to think about. But if all else fails and you don't want to do any of those things, you can start to plant in containers. That way the dogs don't have an opportunity to run through your plants because they're up above the ground. And we have containers in baskets, or plants in baskets. And we also have hypertufa pots. There's hypertufa pedestals, and I use drain tile. And the drain tile, I use those to set my hypertufa pots on, or other pots. Sometimes some of my clay pots will fit right down inside the tile, and that keeps the dogs from knocking something over if that's an option that you like. Now, one of the most important lessons when working with dogs is you really need to train them. Although we're talking about options and fences and so forth, they still need to have some knowledge and responsibility of what to do. And so obedience for all dogs is really a must. Now, you don't have to go out and teach your dog to heel, sit down, come stand and heel. Maybe all you want to do is teach your dog how to walk with you or stay or come. And that's fine. At least it's something that they're responsible for. This is Carson, and he learned to sit up. He's a long-bodied dog, so that was hard for him, but he's mastered it pretty well. So again, it's a control. He enjoys doing it, and he pays attention. You can teach your dog to stay on a porch if that's what you have while you're working out in the garden. But let's talk about other training tools. Again, we've talked about X-pens, crates, sandboxes, and covered fencing. Here are several other possibilities. Using the word no, and I can just hear all of you say, well, I've said no, and it doesn't work. Well, we're going to cover that in a minute. Operating a vibrating collar, learning about an ultrasonic collar, understanding a static collar. Well, teaching the word no. First of all, no is used in a low, firm tone of voice, so it could be no. And your body English should display what you're saying. So if you're saying no, you look the part. No is a negative command that stops the behavior, but it doesn't solve the behavior. So if you're saying no, and the dog looks at you and nothing happens, you don't tell the dog to do anything else, the dog starts to learn that I can ignore you. So, negative commands must always be followed with something positive. So if you say no, the behavior is broken. So if the dog is smelling the edge of your garden, or smelling something in the garden where you don't want them to be, and they all of a sudden turn and look at you, at that point you want to reward them. So if you have a goodie in your pocket, go and reward them, go reward them with your hands, but your body demeanor changes and you say, oh, that's a good dog. If they turn around and look at you, offer them a treat. I prefer to do that in the beginning. Or if the dog knows how to sit, that's always the easiest one. So you could say no to them, and then you could tell them to sit. And what they learn is, oh gosh, every time I sniff and I'm doing that behavior, and somebody says no, I get rewarded for it. So if I don't look at that place where I'm sniffing, I always get rewarded. My master is right there. Now, when you're saying no, I described how you should say it, but sometimes I walk into clients' houses and they go, no, 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 don't do that. Well, that praises the dog because the dog learns through tone of voice, and because it learns through tone of voice, no, 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 no is saying, good, 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 let's go ahead and do that. So when you say no, you have to change your tone. And anyway, anytime you do anything negative, you have to follow it with a positive or it will not work. So, Positive behaviors are sit, down, come, praise your dog with petting or voice, or high priority treats. I like high priority treats in the beginning, and then I graduate to voice, then I do petting, just depends. So, and we have other alternatives. We have vibrating collars, and vibrating collars are used for dogs that are deaf, or an older dog that is starting to lose its hearing, and in a noisy environment. Now, keep this in mind, it's a vibrating collar, and all it's doing is distracting the animal from what it's focused on. So if it was focused on something it was going to pick up off the floor and you didn't want it to do that, or something out in the garden, you're going to use your remote, and that creates the vibration on the collar, and when the dog stops, and it might be only for a millisecond, but as soon as it stops, you hurry up and go reward it. And you can't say no if it's a deaf dog, so you have to depend on the collar. So it's physical touch, petting the dog, or a goodie. So if it was something else and the dog could hear, the vibration is still, you still do it the same way. And so that the dog understands what's right, what's wrong. So training a dog to work at a distance away from you. When you're outside gardening, they're a distance away from you, and maybe they're getting a little close to the neighbor's property, and you hit the button and it's just vibrating on its neck. This is what the collar would look like, and it has a remote which you can adjust to different vibrations. The next one would be an ultrasonic collar. Dogs hear 90% greater than you and I. We will not be able to hear the ultrasonic collar when you're pressing the remote. But when you press that remote and the ultrasonic sound goes off and the dog looks at you, you do exactly the same as you did with the vibrating collar. You praise them, you reward them, tell them to sit. You do something positive and make it exciting that looking at you and being with you is much more important than doing the behavior that you didn't want them to do. So that's an ultrasonic collar. And this is what it looks like. The next thing is we have these new products. They're called outdoor shields. I think they're wonderful for the garden. They look like stones. You can put them in your garden, and they have a circular signal field up to 12 feet in diameter. What a nice thing for the garden. Now, some people might not agree with static collars, but this is kind of neat. You have to have that receiver collar on the dog, so when the static takes place, it makes it uncomfortable for them, and they say, I'm not going to go close to that. Just imagine yourself walking across carpet, and you get static electricity. That's what it's going to feel like for the dog. So, it's part of the Invisible Fence pet security system. They just came out with them, and they look like this. This is an outdoor shield. So it's great wherever you put it, for your dog not to be where it's not supposed to be. They make units for inside too, but this is okay out in the rain, so you don't have to worry about going out and picking it up and bringing it in. All right. So again, we go back, teach your dog how to sit, teach your dog how to come. And Trevor's all grown up here and still coming. And Flint, it's nice, he could go out and lay in the yard and just watch. My original home had 2 acres of fence, so I didn't have to worry about him running anywhere. I mean, I had chain link all the way around. So usually what I always told clients, if they ask me about invisible fence, I say, if you could get away with having a solid fence, I would go that route first. I like that because you don't have to be with them. If you can't do that, but where I live now, I can't have a solid fence, so I have invisible fence in. And it's fine. Okay, now this leads us to plants that are poisonous to dogs, but we're training our dog not to go and eat these plants. So we're going to talk about some of the poisonous plants. Dogs think plants are interesting, so they go, they smell, they sniff, they taste. And what if it's poisonous? You need to know what's in your garden. You need to know every plant that's in your garden. Locate the ones that are poisonous. And familiarize yourself with the plants in the areas where your dog goes. So we're going to talk about poisonous plants. There's many that you probably know that maybe don't even realize that they're poisonous. I think my whole yard had them. But the dogs survived over all these years. But you just need to be responsible and know what they're doing. So one of the first ones that is poisonous to your dogs is grapes. A lot of times, maybe your veterinarian will say don't feed your dogs raisins, cranberries, anything like that that's a grape product, because these will make your dog very sick. And with grapes, vomiting, diarrhea, low energy, loss of appetite. And mushrooms, those are nasty, because there's so many mushrooms that are poisonous. So you need to know, be familiar if you have a yard that likes to grow mushrooms. These will kill them. So that's why they call it deadly parasol mushroom. And if a dog eats a mushroom, sometimes you'll see them, they'll go into a seizure, they'll walk like they're drunk, they'll drool, especially the drooling. That tells you they ate something. So be aware. Cannabis. Hopefully none of us have cannabis growing in our gardens. However, it is poisonous to the dog. Cannabis, dull, lethargic, vomiting, tremors, agitation, all with cannabis, and it can kill your dog as well. Lilies. We all like lilies. We have our Easter lilies and our calla lilies and lily of the valley. Well, those are all in the lilium family. Those are the most poisonous. Those can be deadly. Now, we also have the calla lilies, which are daylilies. Daylilies are not poisonous. Don't have to worry about the leaves, don't have to worry about the flowers, because we can take the flowers off and put them in salads and be decorative. If you were having a tea, you could have the flowers there as a tea, in the tea. So, these lilies are very dangerous to your dog. All parts, the bulbs, the leaves, the flowers. Black walnuts. The chipmunks used to collect mine. So whether they ever died from them, I don't know, but that's how I cleaned the yard up, was the chipmunks took them. So I didn't have to worry so much about it. Sago palm. When the weather changes, and some of you have sago palms that you've put outside in the summer, and then you take them in the winter, and they are very poisonous to dogs and cats. And a lot of these other plants also will affect cats, so be careful with those. Azaleas, rhododendron family, very widely toxic. And if you have a puppy, I think that's probably the biggest problem, is a youngster that's playing outside and wants to taste everything. So those are the ones you really have to keep an eye on. And it's not just for 5 minutes, it may be the whole time it's out there. You can't just leave them run and say, oh, they're getting their energy, they're wearing themselves out. That doesn't work that way. You need to pay attention. Castor bean, very, very poisonous. And beautiful plant, beautiful leaves. And when you watch movies and somebody has poisoned somebody, it's usually the castor bean. So, daffodils, bulbs, stems, flowers. So they can be yummy to a dog. Dieffenbachia, another plant, especially cats. They love to chew on these leaves. Well, that's going to make them very, very sick and can kill them. So anything in the Dieffenbachia family, that's poisonous to your animal. Larkspur. It's a delphinium, so look how many species there are, 300. And plant in the buttercup family, native throughout the northern hemisphere. We see them, we have buttercups all over the place, very poisonous. Flowers, stems. Aloe vera, we don't think about it being poisonous because we break it up. And we put it on our burns, and maybe a dog will have some sore and we think we need to put it on him. Well, it's poisonous to them, so we don't want to do that. Foxglove is that one will kill them. So foxglove is something that you have to keep your eye on. Beautiful plants, I mean, in our gardens they're gorgeous. The amaryllis, Christmas time, many people have an amaryllis bulb that they've grown and it blooms at Christmas. Oh, you're inside, you've got cats, you've got dogs. This is one you need to pay attention to. Well, pay attention to your animal so they don't get into it. Begonias, actually, I didn't realize the begonias were as poisonous as they were. And of course we have tuberous begonias and we have the little begonias, and the dragon wings and the angel wings. They're all poisonous. Elephant ears, another one we bring in the house in the winter. If we've grown it out all summer, we might put it in a corner, or if you have a sun porch, put it on the sun porch. Again, very poisonous. Monkshood, bad. It's a wonderful grower. It spreads like mad. It has beautiful flowers. Same thing. Cyclamen, another one that comes out sometimes around the holidays, especially Easter. You go to Walmart or any of the box stores, and this is what they'll have for sale. They're beautiful, but you don't want them chewing on the flowers and the leaves. Hyacinths and tulips, usually the bulbs. I'm not sure about the stems. I can't answer that one right here. But tulips and hyacinth bulbs are definitely poisonous. And if you have a dog that likes to dig, they would dig these up easily and chew on the bulbs, and that's not a good thing. Tomato plants, the greenery is poisonous. The green tomatoes will affect your dog. Ripe tomatoes, not so much, but the green tomatoes will in the green plant. So, rhubarb. I remember my grandmother saying, don't you dare eat the leaves because they're going to make you very sick. And I never thought about it, I was going to eat them, but I like the rhubarb on the bottom. So that's also poisonous to our animals. English ivy. I had 2 dogs that liked to sleep in it. I had a lot of ground cover along a garage and in another garden, and they would lay and sleep in it. Now it tells you that it will make their skin break out, and ours too. It'll make them sick if they chew on it or eat it. They never did, and the skin never broke out, but it could. So just be aware. And there's all species of English ivy. Boxwood, same thing. Poisonous to chew on. And a lot of times in the winter, boxwood is cut and make Christmas trees out of them and Christmas decorations. So this is something you need to keep in mind. Oleander, that's in the south. However, you can buy oleander up here to display in the summer or take it in the house. But in the south, yeah, this is deadly right here. Very deadly. Milkweed, it's everywhere. Milkweed can also be a problem. So maybe we shouldn't garden. Maybe we should just take all the flowers out of the garden and we'd be safe. Wisteria, the beans, the seed pods. I think it said if they ate 3 seeds, they would be extremely sick from the seed pods. I didn't have to worry about mine because it bloomed once. In 10 years, it bloomed once. So I was safe with the wisteria. But I've seen gorgeous, gorgeous wisteria, and so you would need to clean the beans up if you had a dog or a cat that liked to lick the stuff up. Autumn crocus, they come up in September, and again, the bulbs, the stems, poisonous. Kalanchoe. Now that can be pronounced many ways, but I looked up the pronunciation and that was correct, Kalanchoe. And many people have that as a beautiful house plant, and the leaves are, squishy and wonderful for cats because they like to chew on them. So, not good. Jade plant, same thing, same kind of cushy leaf, poisonous. Corn plant. This one's interesting because it's not just, this is called a cornstalk plant, but we know the husks on our corn, well, those are poisonous too. And what happens is when the animal eats it, it rolls in their mouth and it chokes them because it gets all rolled up and they can't swallow it. So it's not only poisoning them, but it's also choking them. Asparagus fern, it's not really a fern, but it got the name fern because of how it drapes. And the fern is poisonous as well. And it drops needles a lot of times, and the dogs will scarf them up, so you need to pay attention. What are they doing? Mistletoe. All of it is poisonous. So if you've got Christmas and put mistletoe up, don't have it around the dogs. It's usually hanging, but you never know. So, hemlock plant. It's not a hemlock tree, it's a plant. Very deadly. And the whole plant, very deadly. So, here's the boys coming across the bridge. They've been in the garden, they've been around the gardens, and they're coming through. And they understand they have to do some transplanting. So we've got to pull the plants in the container and get them someplace so we can transplant them. And then we have to water them. So, but we have to pull out 300 feet of hose. That's how much hose I had. And then we have to fill up our containers, and then we have to check and see if they're full. And then we have to take the watering can somewhere to water. That's my mom in the background. Are we done yet? Let's check. We made paths. We put up fencing. We created a safe space for our dog. We planted in containers. We trained our dog. And we learned about and checked for poisonous plants. We transplanted and watered. We're done for the day. So Trevor is bringing us water, bottled water, and we're done. One of the neatest books, it's called Dog-Friendly Gardens, Dog-Friendly Dogs. And this is basically gardening with dogs, talking about how to lay your gardens out if you have a dog, and things to think about. And there's a list in here with poisonous plants and what you need to know. One of the nicest books, I have lots of garden books, but this author, Tracy, DiSabato-Aust, The Well-Designed Mixed Garden, she's written probably 4 books now, but it's one of the best books that you can have if you are a perennial person growing perennials in your gardens. I think she has some annuals in here as well. But then we also have to understand our dogs. And the #1 best book is Reaching the Animal Mind by Pryor. And when you read this book, you will see yourself in here and you'll say, oh, I did that. No wonder my dog doesn't do what I want it to do, or why the dog acts like it does. Because it's a dog brain we're talking about, not a human brain. So many of us treat our dogs as children and spoil them and so forth, but they need to have responsibilities as well. And the other book that you can see how I have mine marked off, because there's parts in here I need to run off for people. And this is called The Dog Who Loved Too Much, and Tales, Treatments, and Psychology of Dogs by Dr. Nicholas Dodman. Excellent, excellent book. So they're simple books, they're easy reads, and then my friend and myself wrote an obedience training booklet. We are Animal Insights, and it's all on clicker training. It's very simple, it's very easy. Hopefully, you may have questions at some time. You can send them to the library, and they can send them to me, and I can answer them. Okay, thank you.